Welcome back to the Candy Colored Studio. So I have such a treat for you today. I have the dynamic duo, mother and daughter duo of Lori and Kenzie. And these two fabulous ladies are both creators, but then they also have come together to do more things. And so I'm so excited to talk to them today and to hear more about just how things work for them. I just learned that they only live 20 minutes away, but one's in Kentucky and one's in Ohio, which is like the coolest thing ever. Yeah, we may have to ask some more questions about that, but I would just love to just welcome you ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
We're so excited. Well, I'm excited because I've followed you for a while and I love your work and I love your spirit. And it's just so great to connect with other kindred spirits.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, Lori and I have been kind of, interacting here and there on Instagram, but there's nothing like having like a one-on-one conversation. So I've been looking forward to this. It's getting
Me too.
So ladies, tell us a little bit about like your background, your family. I know Kenzie, you and I were talking a little bit about your kids, but you are a boy mom.
I
We
am
have
a boy
4
mom.
boys.
You
So
have
tell
4
us
boys?
we do. We have 4 boys
Oh,
and
wow.
one girl. So
Yeah, they never stop moving.
No, they don't.
at
They're
least the ones that
jumping,
we
moving.
have, right? I have seen some boys that sit quietly in the church pews, and I'm like, where did you get those? I've never seen those before. You must have got those at a special place.
Our little guy, Holden, is 2. He actually will sit still longer than her 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I asked Nash yesterday or a couple days ago, we were over there watching a movie, and I asked him, I'm like, do you never stop moving, Nash? He goes, I love to move. I'm like, yeah, I know.
That is so great. And so yeah, okay, you've got Holden and
And Nash. So Nash is my older son. He turns 5 in a couple weeks, and all he's asked for his birthday is a gumball machine, which I think is like the cutest thing ever.
cute. That is so cute. And we're learning that he's also a budding inventor.
Oh yes, he likes to think he is.
I
It's really
love
sweet.
it.
Yeah, he like will take whatever we have, like toilet paper rolls and paper, and cut things together and tape it together, and then say it's like a time machine, and we have little inventions taped on all over our walls that have been there like for like 6 months.
Oh, he
Still
likes to
hanging.
set traps.
Oh yeah, he
too.
also likes to set traps around our house.
I don't know who he's catching, but he was at our house for a weekend, and he thought that somebody blew out. We carved pumpkins with them, and he thought that somebody snuck in our porch and blew them out. So he and my husband, Papa, they set traps with bungee cords so they could catch whoever. He has an imagination that won't quit.
I love it. That is so great. And I think that when you have a grandma, or are you Nana? What are you?
I'm Mimi.
Mimi. When you have a
Yep.
Mimi and a mom who are so creative, it's just so good for them because the sky's the limits, right? They don't have
Yeah.
these boundaries or these things telling them, no, you can't do this or
Now,
that's
she initially, like, I remember a couple years ago, I was over there and I decided that they were going to paint with finger paints or whatever. And when she would work with them, then she'd want to keep everything really
Oh.
neat.
So my dad is a very tidy person, a little OCD. I have a little bit of that in myself. So I like don't at first I wasn't one to embrace the mess, but I've come around.
Yeah, since quarantine. So I was letting them paint, and I just let them strip down. And like first they were being really tidy, and then I showed them that they could put it on their bellies and stuff. So they had paint everywhere, and she came in the room and she's like, I have to walk away.
Oh my gosh, that's so
But now, since then, I like will tape up huge butcher paper on our kitchen island and just let them go to town in their underwear. I'm like, go at it.
Yes. I love it. Yeah, our rule has always been you either wear a paint shirt or you just take it off.
Yeah. Yep.
Whatever you're wearing, you take it off.
Exactly.
So good. Yeah, butcher paper is the best. We've had so many times where our twins specifically have unrolled big rolls of it down the hall and they just keep creating and they
Yeah.
roll it up and then they keep creating, the next
I
love
love
that.
it. It's so
so
they
fun.
love. There's something about the scale of it that they just like can't get
Yeah.
enough of. Just having this huge canvas to just do whatever. He drew a
Yeah.
whole Christmas scene last week, like with Santa and a fireplace and a Christmas tree on this like really big piece of paper. It was really cute.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
big
it.
canvases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lori, is Kenzie your only, or do you have other?
No, we also have a son, Tanner, who he's a mechanical engineer, and he's actually very creative too,
Nice.
and quirky.
Oh, I love that.
He's very funny and quirky, and he loves to, like, at Halloween, he loves to dress up. He's been Bob Ross and all kinds of
Kip
cra-
from Napoleon
Yeah.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
But
He
he
lives
has a
close
lot of
by?
his dad in him too. He's because my husband's very black and white, and so Tanner, both kids, I think, are a little bit of a hybrid of both of us.
Mhm.
Sounds pretty perfect.
He
Yeah. So does he live nearby too?
actually lives with us now because he was living on his own, and he lived in a neighborhood that was sort of a little sketch, and had an incident where a bullet went through his roommate's closet door. And so after that, we're like, all right, and that wasn't the only incident in the neighborhood. So we're like, all right, maybe it's time
Maybe it's time.
move back. And that was right
Wow.
before COVID hit. So
It was kind of perfect timing for him to
Yeah.
move out anyways, so he
Yeah.
wasn't by himself all
Right.
the time.
so
Totally.
who knows how long he'll stay with us, but for now he's at home, which is really nice because we share a similar taste in Netflix shows, and we have a same sense of humor. So we wait till my husband falls asleep, and then we watch what we want to watch together.
Oh, that's fun. That's really fun. Yeah, I have a sister who lives with my parents, and then my brother is considering moving home too. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we were the only ones that weren't there for Thanksgiving. There's 6 kids in my family, and everyone
Wow.
was there except for my sister who lives in England. So that was obvious. She could not come, and then of course we couldn't come. But the rest of them got to be there, and I think they had a good time together. So
Yeah, ours was really small. It was just Kenzie and her family and my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law, and that was just fine. It was really nice. And then they went home, and the boys spent the night with Steve and I.
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, there's something to be said about a cozy Thanksgiving.
I know. I kind of like it. I don't know that I want to go back to the big one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We've had a cozy Thanksgiving for a while, like maybe the last 6 or 8 years. We just, whoever of my family was in town, we would have Thanksgiving with them here, and we'd just host, 1 or 2 of my siblings, maybe my grandma, and it was like that for a long, long time. And then this year, my family obviously was going to all be, they were all in California, and my mother-in-law was like, "Do you want to come to Thanksgiving?" We're like, "Well, we could," and then she got sick.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like the one year that, I kind of saved Thanksgiving for my family and just
Yeah.
the handful of us, but it was like, oh my gosh, maybe we'll have to try for Christmas.
I tell
Yeah.
you, if you don't like change, this is not a good year for you.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to be so flexible, because you don't know what's going to come next.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Everything is, yeah, exactly. There's
Crazy. Crazy,
Oh
crazy.
my goodness. Well, I'm just glad that you guys are close by. I'm glad that you're making the most of it. I think that family is everything, and I think
Oh
that
my gosh.
you guys
So,
are such a good example of this.
yeah. Now, if I didn't get to see them and the grandkids, then I would be really, I feel for people that don't get to see
Yeah.
their
for
close
sure.
family.
I actually feel for my in-laws because they live 2.5 hours northwest, and we're pretty close with them also. but my mother-in-law broke her ankle in 3 spots, like at the beginning of October. So she's been in a cast and like hasn't been able to do anything. She's just basically couch ridden on top of like not being able to have like visitors or anything. So
Yeah.
I feel really bad. And we didn't get to go see them for Thanksgiving just because, well, one, they canceled because of COVID, but also I think it was probably because these crazy kids, she didn't want them jumping on her leg, which I totally understand that too.
Yeah,
But I
totally.
still feel for them because I think they had a hard time just being the 2 of them on Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
hopefully we get to go for Christmas.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Oh, it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
Like,
My
we
poor
find that
dad.
happy medium. Like we want cozy, but we still want to be able to be with people that we love, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
My poor dad. He lives. I lost my mom in April this year,
Oh,
and so my dad lives in an independent living facility, and they've been having some issues with COVID. They've had several. Sorry about the sirens. We're not. We're not. You know, we just this happens a lot because we're downtown. Anyway, he can't leave. He's supposed to stay in quarantine because they've had a bunch of people come down with the virus and like 1 death. So he couldn't come for Thanksgiving. We
oh,
had to bring food to him and drop it off at the door.
oh.
Yeah, I know. He's going crazy, but he has a little dog and that keeps him a little bit sane.
Oh, that, yeah, at least he has a dog. So if they are doing better in their facility for Christmas, could you go get him and bring him to your
Well,
house?
I think
Or how
we'll
does
do
it work?
that. And you know what they've told him is if he does leave, he would just have to when he comes back, he has to be on lockdown again. So it might
Oh,
be worth just
yeah.
having him
Darn it.
come and then be on lockdown for 2 weeks after, just so he can be with us. Because
Totally.
I hate him being alone.
Yeah. Oh, that is so hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
It's
another of the millions of stories of this year.
Yeah, totally. And yet I feel like those I've been hearing a lot of stories like that. My neighbor that just lives down the street, same thing. She couldn't go see her mom
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving, and she's like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go get her. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I haven't talked to her about it since Thanksgiving, so I don't know how it went. But they change everything every day. So
I
sometimes
know.
it's hard
I
to
know.
know. Like I said,
Exactly.
it's hard to plan. Can't
I
really
know.
don't know what's coming.
I want to plan some things for next year, and I do a conference once a year called Art Biz Jam, and we did it virtually this year, and it's supposed to be next fall, and I don't even know if I should start asking the speakers and start planning it because I don't know what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's crazy.
That is crazy. I've done I've been a speaker at a couple events over the past few years, and this year that's what they did. They went virtual, and they ended up changing the date at the last minute, and I couldn't do the new date. It was just so
Um,
many things. I finally just said, I'm sorry, I just can't participate this year. But I think that the type of year that we've had, even if you were to say, this is what I'd like to do, do you want to get on the list and just,
right.
a possibility if it works out? I don't know. I think
That's probably what we're gonna do because we had planned it to be in Kansas City this year, and the hotel that we had it booked with, they completely let us out of the contract. And I think if we go back to them and say we don't know what's gonna happen, what's your policy, I think they'd probably work with us.
totally. And how many people usually go to it?
The last time we had 50 people, so it's right around that number. And then
Yeah.
I had done a retreat in France last year. Thank God we did it last year. And Kenzie came with me, and
Oh my gosh.
it was magical.
It was amazing.
So magical. I mean, that actually memories from that have been keeping me going this year. So anyway, the owner of the place where we had it, she wants me to plan one for next year. And I'm really tempted, but then, I talked on Instagram, I kind of asked the question, and a lot of people said, wait till 2022. So
Okay.
I guess I'm going to do that, but I'm ready to go anywhere.
My husband just told me today that he heard, like, I don't know if he read an article or he heard something where people are projecting that things will be somewhat back to normal around September of next year.
Okay.
So like
I've heard similar things, and one was from a doctor that's like the head of a hospital, a local hospital. And so I'm like, well, I'm hearing this from different people. So maybe it's a possibility. I think
Yeah.
too, Lori, if it comes to be like August and you feel like the green light is there, you throw it out there, you might get more people than you expected. Like, how many people went with you to France last year?
16.
Yeah. So
So it's it's a small group, but the place where I have it is just, it's so
amazing.
lovely. And I think people are going to be chomping at the bit to go somewhere.
I think so too. That's what I'm saying. You may end up getting 20 just because they haven't been able to go anywhere.
Right,
And as soon as
right.
if you already have the place and all these things set up, it'll be very easy for you to quickly make the move. So
Yeah.
everyone that's listening, make sure you're on Lori's email list and following her on Instagram. So tell me more about the retreat in France. Where were you guys at?
We were in southern France, this small little town, and I never can say it right. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. But it's a place called Les Sources Anglaises, and the English sisters. It's run by a lovely woman, Katie, and she and her sister and a friend, they all make all the meals, and they have this beautiful home, like an old French manor house. But then they built at the top of the hill right on their property this incredible workshop space that's really open and more modern. And like I said, the meals, like
I dream about the food.
I
It was
know,
like
it was
probably the best food I've ever had in my life.
amazing.
And just the fact that it was cooked right there by these like 3 women who would dance in the kitchen while they were cooking.
Yeah.
And
They would play like the blues and stuff like that, and you'd walk in and they'd be making the meals. And we actually went to Paris for a few days before, and then one day on the way back. So we were in Paris and then took the train to the retreat, which started on a Monday and ended on Thursday night. And like I said, I mean, we couldn't have had better weather the whole time. We went with my one of my best friends from high school and her daughter and another friend of ours. The 5 of us were all in Paris together. And we just, I mean, we crack up because our one friend, Marianne, is hilarious and just made us laugh the entire time. And
Aww.
she does this thing. She lives in Chicago, and she like draws hearts everywhere, and she has this little thing where she gives out these little pins with hearts on them to people and say, wear your heart on your sleeve. So she started this thing in her area, this little covert thing where she would go out in the early morning and stencil a heart on like trees or signs.
she's like the heart vigilante.
So she did that in Paris. She got up really early, put on her black ball cap and her black jacket, and went out and stenciled a heart on a tree right across from the Airbnb that we were staying in. So
she made her mark.
So cute.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Les Soeurs Anglais, that's the place.
Les Sources Anglaises.
Les Soeurs Anglaises.
Yes, Anglais. Yeah.
So where south of France, like were you down by Nice? Were you by were you in Provence?
You were near Toulouse, right?
Toulouse?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Vertival?
I don't have
It's okay. We were actually just there last year. Like our family went there.
Uh-huh.
And here, I'll pull it up. Keep
It's-
talking.
It was like Vertaillac, but I can't pronounce it right.
Where the train station where we got dropped off was in Anglo-M, and that was very nearby where this, I don't know if I'm saying any of this right.
And then Abu Tair was the little town that we went to.
Yeah.
Right. So there were like 2 little towns right next to each other.
Did you go to Albi when you were there?
No.
That's where Toulouse-Lautrec That's where he's from.
Oh,
They have a
cool.
beautiful, we actually went there. There's a museum there. That was amazing. So you're really close to Toulouse.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, we will be going back, and next time I'd like to stay a little longer and explore even
Avoteurs
more.
are drawn.
We're so good with our French.
Ah, it's
I
so-
don't have, I wish that I could speak French because I think it's such a beautiful language, but I cannot.
What was the one phrase Maria would say? Je suis. It was something.
Désolé.
Yes.
Je suis désolée. It means I'm sorry.
Vraiment désolé. It was something like, yeah, excuse me, pardon me. She had this huge pink suitcase that we called Big Bertha. And like trying to get that on and off the trains was really fun. So we said if we go back, Big Bertha is not invited.
Not invited. So I went with a bunch of ladies a couple years ago in the fall of 18, and one of our cute friends, she had a huge suitcase, and it was this cute vintage, but huge and so heavy, and she was pregnant.
Oh,
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
It was like, but it was the most charming suitcase. So maybe Bertha,
So was Big Bertha. She was
yeah, Bertha and this suitcase need to go be friends together. So when you went last year, did you take the ladies in the fall, or when did you
Yeah,
like,
it was
go?
in September. It was
Like
in,
early September. So
Yeah.
it was right on the cusp of fall.
like mid. Like
We had the most
14th.
amazing weather because they said a lot of times at that time it's like kind of rainy and dreary, but it was like beautiful sunny
It was-
skies the entire time we were there. It
It's
was
like we
perfect.
ordered the whole thing. It
Yeah.
was just, it couldn't have been more perfect.
Oh, I
So
love
much
that.
fun. So much fun.
Well,
And
I'm just so
we-
glad you got to share that together
I
too.
know.
And she made me a really great book, like one of those, I don't know.
Like
how
a
to-
photo book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It said best trip ever and all these beautiful photographs. And it was,
Aw.
I loved
So
it.
did you take turns like leading did you just have studio time, or like what, if people want to sign up, and by the way, you really should sign up because Lori's gonna put it together at the last like what would people expect? Obviously you're gonna have some beautiful French ladies singing and dancing in the kitchen and making beautiful,
Yes,
delicious
yes.
food.
Well, the last time we did alcohol inks one day, block printing one day. Did we do watercolor? I don't think we did. Oh, and then the third day we took what we made with the alcohol inks and the block prints, and we made them into collages and stitched into them.
Cool.
And the women made the most beautiful things. And what's gratifying for me is like some people just loved the alcohol inks and have continued on playing with those. And then some of the people, at least one artist that I really like, Diane Kappa, she fell in love with the block printing. And so she's now doing a lot of that and has her own Instagram feed with a lot of block printing on it. So I don't know, I like to, I'm not the kind of teacher where I show a piece and then you copy it. It's more about like sharing the technique and then inspiring you to make things that really feel like you. And so I love it at the end of the class when every piece looks different. And when the people say, this looks just like me, or I didn't even know I could do that, or, you know.
Also, what I loved about it was that the majority of the group that was there, it was a quilting group from Utah. So they weren't even like artists, but they went and were
Obviously
able to
very
do
creative.
something, yeah, like creative in a different way, but using that skill set and putting it into another form of artistry. And I don't know, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and what was cool is when it came to the time where we were stitching into our collages, I mean, we're with a bunch of women that quilt and know how to stitch. And I don't know, and I always love too when people in the classes that I do, the retreats, they learn from one another. So it's, you know, it's not just me that they're learning from, it's also everybody knows something. And when you're in a group like that, it's just so much fun to share. And like, I love when I'll show like how to use alcohol inks. And by the end of the class, like I'll learn all these new ways to use alcohol inks just by watching, because everybody approaches a technique or a tool differently. And I love that. I love like I learn just as much as what I'm teaching.
Yeah, and it sounds like you give them this perfect environment where their hearts can just be open to try new things. And how many times have we said, "Oh, I would love to try alcohol inks," or "I'd like to try block printing,"
Right.
but you don't have that perfect situation. Maybe you have things going on at home or other responsibilities, and so you put it off because there's other things going on, or you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel in a safe space to just be open to trying something new. But that's what you're providing. You're providing this
Right.
beautiful safe space to learn from each other and to ask each other questions like right in the moment, which I
Right.
think is so valuable.
Yeah, before the French retreat, I've been doing for about 7 years, once or twice a year. I've been doing these retreats at this beautiful bed and breakfast slash wedding venue in Kentucky, and that is another just magical property. And we would do the classes in the carriage house, and again, the meals were wonderful. That's one thing that I try to do when I do my live retreats is kind of approach every sense. So, the food is wonderful. We play wonderful music. People dance and sing while they're working. I don't know. It's a very celebratory. And I kind of got that from, I went to Les Sources Anglaises when I turned 50 for a retreat with Julie Arkell. I don't know if you know her work, but her work is wonderful. And that experience, because like one night they brought in a bluegrass band who played right in their living room, and we were all playing the spoons, and and the meals, and like every part of it, not just the art making, but every part of it was just wonderful and magical. So that was always my vision for my live retreats, is to make it an experience like that.
Oh, well, I can like feel it. I can like feel it from here. It sounds amazing. Yeah, Zoom has got this new feature. I'm just kidding. The Corona feature, you can taste and smell things now. No, seriously.
Oh,
It sounds
maybe Nash can build us a travel machine.
Yeah.
yeah, that's all we need. We're just missing one little thing.
Exactly.
So, okay, so this is amazing. So how did you get to this point? Like tell me more about you ladies and your creative journey. How did you get to this point? I'm just curious.
You want me to start?
Well, you started first. So
I'll go fast through it because I've been in business since 1987. So I started my design firm, our design firm, 3 years out of college. I was a graphic designer, so did everything that graphic designers do: branding, collateral, packaging, all of that. Then we did a stint in environmental graphics and did all the signage. The big, I guess, thing that came out of that little period of time was we did all the signage for the superhero island in Islands of Adventure, the Universal Studios in Florida. That
Wow.
was a really hard time because that was my mid-30s. We had 12 people on staff and I had 2 kids, and I don't even know how I did it, actually, looking back.
I love the story though, just a side story about that. So we went to Universal Studios when I was obviously younger. I don't know, I was maybe 12 or something. But my mom was taking photos of all the signage that they had done, including like just the signs outside the bathrooms. And people are like, what is this woman?
They're like, she really likes it here.
I'm always doing strange things though, so I don't really care.
But that's the heart of a true artist. My kids sometimes they're like, Mom, you're being really cringy right now, right? I'm like, oh, sorry.
I don't care.
You know how it is. Once you get teenagers, they tell you. Little, they don't say.
Well, when we were in Paris, I think Kenzie was getting a little impatient because she was our planner and we had a great agenda that she put together. But I'm meandering around going, oh,
There's a little bit of that OCD coming out in me again.
I'm taking pictures and I'm always lagging behind, and she's like, come on, Mom, come on,
We've got
Mom.
lots to see.
Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
So then we started doing work for companies that we wanted to go after. We like Target and Nickelodeon, Bath and Body Works. Started doing style guides for Target for their seasonal. So what that is, we would create all the icons, prints and patterns, color palette, and put it into a booklet form that they would give to their manufacturers in hard and soft lines. So they were all using the same art to put on products so that throughout the store there was, consistency. So we were always an illustration based firm. So I started researching art licensing, and that was about 15 years ago, I guess. So we went to first the licensing show and took a booth out there, and then at Certex, and then we ended up with an agent. So we've been focused on art licensing for the last 15 years, but also on the side over the last 7 years doing the retreats, which has then led this year into doing an online version of teaching.
Cool.
So that's my fast track story.
And then
amazing.
Now your turn.
I graduated from UC College of Design, DAP, in 2012. And actually, we had the same college professors. They all started the program, and then they retired the year after I graduated. So it's cool because we were able, we literally had all the same teachers.
And
Wow.
they even did some of the same projects.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pre-computer, so I did it all with, painting placa and a ruling pen and all that. And they do it all on the computer now, but some of the same exact projects. So it was crazy.
Yeah. And then after I graduated, I worked for, it was a design consultancy firm that did a lot of design for P&G. So I designed Pampers and Always pads for about 5 years. And then I had my son, and my first son. And after I had him, that's when I left that company. Even though I loved it, it was a great firm and everybody there is lovely. But that's when I left and started working for them part-time. And I've been working for them part-time since 2016. And then I recently just started my own little Instagram account for just my illustrations. And then I hope to next year start selling prints. It's hard when I have kids because I literally I squeeze in an illustration within 30 minutes, and because I have my kids home with me 2 days a week. So
But I'm constantly telling her because, Instagram is wonderful, but it's also a big place it's a comparison.
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's very overwhelming, but it's also really inspiring.
So she's always saying, she sees these accounts that have millions of followers or whatever, and they're young moms and they're doing all this stuff. And she's like, Mom, how do they do it? And I'm like, who knows what their life is really like? Everybody puts their, the fantasy world on their Instagram
Yeah, it's easy
feed.
to curate your life. And I will say, I take pride in spending quality time with my kids. I will plan activities for them and really try to invest my time in them so they feel like they can feel it. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's what I tell her all the time because I worked like a fiend when they were young, and I guess I have a little bit of guilt about that. And I think you're just such a great mom, and she really is spending such good quality time with them. And she never thinks she does, and she's always beating herself up about, I'm not good enough. And I'm always like,
I'm a perfectionist at heart. Like even today, I told my husband, I was like, "What? I just want to make sure we're doing all the most special things for Christmas. Like, what all can we do?" And he's like, "You need to calm down."
he's a perfect balance for her. Because he's just like fun loving. Yeah,
Aw.
he
Well,
talks her off the ledge too.
yeah, we we need each other, don't we?
Yes.
My
Absolutely.
older kids don't remember some of the fun things that we did when they were younger. I blogged quite a bit of it. It's funny because I put it on there to share it with my parents, but it was like so long ago. It was like when blogs first came out. So they didn't know how to get on there. And I realized that even though I made it for them, like they weren't looking at it. And so it just became a family record. But now I'm like, we used to do that. And my kids are like, no, we didn't. I'm like, I have proof. You may not remember.
I will show you.
Look at this.
And it's funny because now I have my twins who are so much younger, and I'm like, okay, I have to find that balance because they won't remember everything, but I still want to do special things with them. But
Yeah.
I also need to sleep some hours each
Right.
night.
Yes,
Exactly.
Totally.
I think that
Exactly.
it's great. Again, it's great that you have your mom and your husband to just kind of help you find that good balance because I think that I don't know, your mom can probably attest to this, Kenzie, but you will never stop beating up like you'll never stop having those thoughts of like
Yeah.
wanting to do better, wanting to be a better mom. And for me, it's like I just don't want to screw them up, right? I don't want to screw them up. Like forever it was like, I just want to keep the twins alive. That's all I want. Just keep them alive. And now it's like, I just don't want to screw them up. They don't go away, but I think that when you have family there to support you, family, friends, just loved ones around you, like I think that it helps you because it's not a bad thing to want to be better, but we do need people there to say, you did a good job. Okay, now go take a little break.
Yeah.
My husband's like, do you need a timeout? I'm like, yeah, I need a break.
I think because Nash is in that, he's trying out his independence. It's sometimes hard as a mom to realize that they are little people and they are their own little people.
Yeah.
And just because they act up or they don't do exactly what you say, that doesn't mean you're failing as a mom. It's all part of their
Figuring themselves out.
Yeah,
too.
their growing up process.
Yeah, like the other day, he and his friend took an entire bottle of baby powder and shook it all over his friend's room because they said they were keeping bats out. And I was like, why would you think that was a good idea? And he was like, it was fun for me. Who are you?
Oh my gosh, that's so great. I love it.
Like,
but it's the
maybe
same
fun for you, but
my
not for
my 2-year-old jumped on the mattress in the middle of the room and it just went poof.
You're like, oh man, why didn't we have that on video? Yeah, so my dad came to visit a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was 3. I'm not sure. Anyways, he would, Corona time. It's all relative.
Right, exactly.
So my parents were in town. My dad came in and was hanging out with the kids one day, and he brought. Have you ever seen? It's like a little envelope, and it has a snake on it. And inside, it says on the outside, rattlesnake eggs. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, I would go get it, but I don't want to make you wait. But anyways, you open it slightly, and inside there's like a metal piece and a washer, and it's held by a rubber band. And you just wind it up, and you carefully put it in that little envelope.
Oh.
So when the person, just like looks in, it releases the washer and it's.
Oh my gosh, we gotta do this.
Just like a rattlesnake, right? So you looked at the picture. There's a picture of the rattlesnake. You see the eggs. You literally, your heart stops. So he does that too. He did it to a couple of the kids. He did it to our older twin. He went screaming, running, and like we were laughing so hard. I'm like, oh, why didn't I have that on video? Because one America's funniest. And so we were laughing about it, and he's like, Mom, I can do it again.
I can reenact.
I'll practice. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's not the same.
Oh, we totally have to make one of those.
Yeah, that sounds funny.
Yeah, so let's hope Nash decides that the baby powder thing, that was a one-time thing. We don't need to
Oh.
relive that for America's
You
Cup.
don't need to relive that.
We don't know
Yeah.
with him though, because you really don't know what he's gonna do next.
Right?
I mean, he's a really good kid, but he just like just the things that he thinks to do. I'm like, whoa.
Everything is some kind of adventure, or I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just his brain just blows me away.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that because I think that this year, if there's anything that I've been worried about, is that the kids' creativity is getting stifled, being stuck at home or just watching TV or whatever. Like, I
know.
worry about that, right? Well, clearly, we're not going to worry about that for Nash.
You know, I actually think it might be the opposite. And I think back to when I was growing up, and we didn't have, video games. And I mean, we literally, my mom would say, go outside, and we'd
Yeah.
be outside playing all day long. And, we would come up with our own adventures. And
Yeah, but there are a lot of kids who only play video games, which
Yeah.
I'm like, you will not be one of those children.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's hard. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that you're right. It can either really help their creativity. Like I've heard that it's so valuable for kids to be bored. And I
Mhm.
remember one of my older kids saying, but I'm just bored. I'm like, how can you be bored? I just can't run out. I can't come up with enough time to do all the things that I
I know.
want to do, you
Yeah.
know?
What do you always tell Nash?
I say boring people are get bored.
Exactly. I'm going to remember that. Like, well, you don't want to be a boring person.
Exactly.
Oh, well, this is amazing. So, okay, do you want to tell us a little bit more? You told us kind of about the licensing journey, but do you have like any advice for the ladies listening that would love to get started? Like it sounds like you said, I'm going to Surtech, I'm gonna get a booth, I'm just going for it. Like what kind of advice would you give creatives or anyone that wants to do
Okay.
licensing?
Well, initially, when I first even heard the word licensing, what I did first was I got several books on it and read a lot about it. And I'm sort of a research junkie. And a curious person. So I just started researching, and I found out first about the licensing show. So at the time, I think we had several employees then. So I think I sent one of our employees there before we took a booth just to check it out. And so she went, and so then the next year we got a booth ourselves, and we really kind of, looking back, you realize what you didn't know, because I sent her and she didn't come back and tell us like how everybody presented. So everybody pretty much puts like their two-dimensional art on a wall. That's basically what they did. Well, we went crazy thinking, well, art licensing means you put it on product. So we prototyped tons of products and filled the booth with all these 3D things that took so much time to do. Well, it really wasn't helpful because the prototypes were so nice that people would come by and they'd think those were final products, and they're like, oh, well, they've already licensed that, or, that's already product that's out in the market, when it wasn't even real. It was all, stuff we made. So lesson learned, there's no mistakes, just lessons. So the next time we sort of did it differently, but we did make, every time you put yourself out there, I think in any way, whether it be sending a direct message to someone on Instagram that you admire, that you want to connect with, or, researching a show, or I don't know, calling someone that they know a lot about something you want to learn about, and asking if you can take them to lunch or do a Zoom call or whatever. I think every time you put yourself out there that way, you learn something that goes into your arsenal of, the valuable things that help you in your career. And I think it's funny because I remember years ago, we decided, we started out doing business to business mostly with, banks and corporations that we weren't as interested in. And we decided at one point we wanted to go after companies that we wanted to work with. So, I reached out to somebody at Nickelodeon and got on a plane and went there. And what surprised me is how, they were really open to hearing from us. And at one point they were saying something like, wow, other people we work with, they don't meet deadlines and they don't do this like you do. And I'm like, really? Like, that's just a given. So I don't know, sometimes people put this wall up and it's out of fear, I guess, or thinking that you're not good enough, or the person doesn't want to hear from you. And it's like, well, why not? Why?
Yeah.
And I think, like, I'm encouraging Kenzie.
Yeah, that's a lesson
right
I'm
now.
trying to learn, is just having like the gumption to just reach out to people that you just, I mean, what's the worst they could say? Is,
Exactly.
like, not respond or nothing, or just say no thanks.
Exactly.
So
And, I mean, I think the older I've gotten too, I'm like, well, I don't have a lot of more years doing this. So if I want to do some stuff, I better do it. And why not just take the risk and reach out to people and, tell them you admire them, or research the company and learn about that company. And then,
just pitch yourself.
yeah, like when we first started, another thing that I did initially in licensing is there was a ceramics company that I walked into their showroom and I just fell in love with everything they did. So for the next step, I decided, okay, I really want to work with them. So how do we impress them? So we actually bought a bunch of like just bisqueware and hand painted them like dinnerware, and then photographed them and put together a really beautiful presentation that we gave to them. And not everyone's going to that length to work with a company, so they were impressed. So we ended up working with them for several years. And that's always kind of been a formula, I guess, I've followed, is I sort of pinpoint the companies that I really admire and really want to work with, and then figure out, how do you impress them? What can you do differently that will set you apart from everybody else? That, like right now, if you sent a beautiful package through the mail to someone, it would probably blow them away, because everything is so digital and Zoom, and people are longing for things that they can touch and feel.
the
And
tactile.
so I don't know, that's just always been something that we've done throughout the years.
Yeah, so many good things in there. Thank you for sharing all that. There were so many good things. I hope people will just pause and go back and re-listen so you can write it all down. But I think you're right. I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing is, number one, we just need to be brave and be
Oh,
willing
totally.
to put ourselves out there, but go the extra mile. Like you say, figure out what's gonna stand out and what's gonna impress them. And then also, going back to your employee going to Surtech for the first time, I did a lot of the same thing too. I signed up for shows and events and I had never even been to them. So I showed up at a show once and there was like a CMU block wall. And I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to hang up my art.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
have any grids. I had nothing. I had to go to the store and get some, what are they called? The plastic things you just
Yeah.
temper.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it. I can't think of
Anyways, those cheap little things. And I think I did have a painting fall down.
it.
It was totally fine, but like, I think it does, it's worth it to take the time to go and look. And I think sometimes it's really easy to just reach out to people and ask for their advice, and I think that's great, but sometimes you have to go
Yeah.
yourself, because if you're not walking around saying, okay, let me envision myself here, what do I
Right.
need to do, what is it that I
Exactly.
need to have? I remember going to a big show and you had to bring your own light system, and so I remember my friend said, go check out so-and-so's light bar. And so I did. I went and looked at it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so much easier. And when you're paying attention to all the different options that people have, and
Right.
I think it's important. Sometimes you have to actually go and
Right.
look at it and
Exactly.
say, what is it that I have that's going to add to what's already here? And like you said, what can I do that's different? And
Right.
I think that's so great. Good stuff.
And so now we go to the gift show every January. It's January and July in Atlanta, And I tell people who are in our Art Biz Jam community, you need to go to the gift show. And I warn them, I'm like, you're going to be completely overwhelmed because it's 3 buildings full of product. Because when I first started going, I thought, I don't think the world needs any more products. Like, there's so much stuff. But then you realize that it's like anything else. It's about building relationships and finding those companies that you really admire and learning as much about them as you can, so that you can really be a valued partner to them and bring something of value. And I don't know, it comes down to being brave and also researching, being curious, learning.
Also deeper roots with like certain people helps too. Like
Yeah.
if you have good, like you said, like good relationships with companies that like are inherent to like your morals.
Yeah, and the
And-
way you like to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that definitely helps too.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's good stuff. So I'm curious, what was the first product that you ever like sold? So not all the ones that you brought to the first Surtech, but what was the first one that you actually licensed, or did you do a
It
whole
was
collection?
probably that ceramic company that I told you about. The name is Zrike, Zrike, and that was the first company I think that we really got a good license with. The other company was Natural Life. They have a great feed on Instagram and they do great products. And we actually met the owner of Natural Life at the very first show that we did, the licensing show, and made that connection there and did work with her for a long time. She now has most of her work done in-house, I believe. But yeah, we made some great connections through those shows that were lasting connections. And they were just, people you met coming by the booth. And again, we didn't know what we were doing. And we made a lot of really dumb mistakes. Like, we had all the stuff for our booth delivered at one end of the hall and it was a huge convention center and had no idea. Actually, we brought it by taxi. We were afraid to ship it because we were afraid it wouldn't land there. So we loaded all this crap into a taxi. The taxi dropped us off at one end of the convention center and we had no idea how we were going to get it all to the other end of the convention. But those are the stories that make it all fun looking back. It's like everybody that starts a company or a small business, they are all going to have these stories where they didn't have it all figured out in the beginning. And you just kind of jump in and you do things, and then every time you do it, you learn something from it.
Yeah, you do. And it's kind of the proof, right? The proof in the pudding. Like if you don't make it through those, like if you just gave up after that, you wouldn't be telling the stories, right? But that's also every time you go through those weird things that you're trying to figure out, that just solidifies, yes, it's absolutely worth my time and effort to figure this out because I want this and I want it bad.
Right. Well, we're going through the same thing with the online classes because that's a whole other world of, teaching and marketing yourself online. And there's so much to learn. So this year has been a big year of learning in that space. And so again, like I've worked with 2 mentors. One is Linda Barutha. She's kind of had a lot of experience in teaching online, so she was helping. And then we're now working with a woman named Erica Storkel. She has a company called Delta Perspectives, and she's an online launch specialist that helps figure out like what do you need to do to really launch a class properly. Yeah. So, we did put one little class out, but that was sort of our little trial run. Okay, now we know all the pieces of what we have to do, but I didn't love that the way we filmed it. I didn't love it.
Was it just fall?
It was the one that was paint rag flowers. It's just a little DIY, but what went into that or why that was important is we learned everything we need to do. Like we now
Yeah.
know the platform we're using. So it's not edited perfectly. It's not filmed perfectly. It's not perfect, but we learned from it. And so now, next time it'll be better. And then the next time it'll be better. And
It's hard because we have a very small team too.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah.
lot of people, have a whole digital team to do all these things, but
Yeah.
it's just us and one other person. So
Well, and some
think
people
that's
only have themselves. So we're
Yeah.
lucky we even
that's
have that.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I think it's awesome. So tell us more about like where you guys are at right now with your online course. So so you built the little teaser.
Yeah, that was,
out there.
I have one class, well, actually two classes up on Teachery now. One is the paint rag flowers, and then did another one recently on alcohol ink ornaments. But we filmed a bigger class, and we just started a second bigger class. And the idea is we're calling it the Creatively Curious Club, and I wanted to figure out a way to teach that was a little bit different than, I didn't know how to do something different because so many people are teaching.
Yeah.
And so that held me back for a long time from teaching online, because my friends would say, you need to teach online, you need to teach online. I'm like, I haven't figured out what it is that makes this different. So then I started thinking about, well, Kenzie, she's great on the computer, and she doesn't always get to paint, like really, use some of the things that I use when I create. So the idea behind the classes is that she's my student and I'm teaching her things in the class. And what's cool about it is, like, I'm sharing these techniques with her and we're painting side by side. And at the end of the class, our paintings look completely different.
Yeah.
And that's always what I like about when I teach is having that happen. So
Which I think is also helpful for the audience, because then it's like you don't have to have the same exact product. Like, here's an example of two that are doing the same thing.
Totally.
So yours can
love
look
that.
completely different also.
So
That's-
we
yeah.
have the mixed media class filmed, and that's in editing, and hope to launch that in March. And then we started filming a watercolor class. And then I also started making these junk birds during quarantine. The NBC Making It show, we're doing these challenges. And the first one was your junk drawer challenge. And I made this bird. And so I got obsessed. So now I'm making these junk birds.
Oh.
So I've done a little class on that, but I'm hoping to, Jean Oliver, she has a wonderful network of classes, and I think that class is potentially going to run through her network, which will be great because, I've admired her and all that she's done for years. So that was an example of being brave.
Yeah.
I sent her a direct message and said, hey, I'd love to have these junk birds in a class in your network. Are you interested? And we went back and forth, and so that's going to happen. So
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And one thing that I'm loving hearing from the two of you is just as you said, how important it is for people to learn that when you learn from an artist and you go to create, it doesn't need to look exactly like theirs. And yet you're also a perfect example of that with the way that you're creating your courses. You're not putting them in the same places. You're not developing them the same way. You're just trying to figure it out, and you're following the journey. And I think that that's so important for everyone to hear, because I think a lot of times we just think everything's linear, and it's not. It's not linear
right.
by any means.
Right. You have to figure out what feels right for you. Like with the launch specialist that I'm working with, initially she works with a lot of companies that are more focused on business. And so she had given me initially a template for a webinar as something that I could do when I launched the class. And the more I thought about that, I'm like, I don't know if a webinar with PowerPoint slides is really what I want to do to launch this.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather do something that's more fun, like a 5-day challenge or something that will whet people's appetite and be fun and interesting. And then if they like the challenge, then they might be likely to buy the course. So, part of it too is figuring out what feels right and authentic to you and what you love and what you're excited about. Like, because when I looked at the webinar template, I'm like, I don't even know if I can sit down and write this. Like, it wasn't exciting me at all. So I'm like, oh, but a 5-day challenge when I can come up with fun things for artists to do, like, I'm all about that. So
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And it does feel like the 5-day challenge would have more hands-on, and that's what you're inviting them to do anyways. So it
right.
feels like it's a better transition anyways. I did my first webinar launch in February when we launched the Candy Club this last time we opened up, and it was so intimidating. And
Yeah.
I watched some examples of, like, I'd been to webinars, I just had been to learn. I hadn't gone to the webinar to understand what they were doing with the webinar or how they
Right.
I was just going to learn, right? So I
Yeah.
wasn't,
Yeah.
it's like your employee going to Surtech for the first time, and you're like, oh, I just didn't look at it that way. And so when I went to do mine, I watched a couple people that said this is the way to do a webinar. And so the first time I did it, I think I did 3 in that launch. The first one was I tried to follow what they were doing. And like you're saying, it just didn't feel genuine. It
Yeah.
didn't feel
Yeah.
right to me. By the end, I was totally in my groove. It was just so much fun. But I think that I think you're right. I think it's not for everything. I think that that's something that's been kind of going around lately, is the best way to get people to sign up for stuff across the board is the webinar. And I don't necessarily think that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a perfect example of that, is that in your case, it was so much better to just do it's better to do a 5-day challenge and get them working with you and see how you teach and see how the product comes out. And especially, I don't know, I think then they get to know you and see if it's a good fit.
Yeah. Well,
So
someone I really admire is Nicholas Wilton, and he has the Art to Life program, and I just love his teaching style and the way he is about how he interacts with the people he works with. And I don't know, it's I think if you find people like that it really inspire you, you can take nuggets from that and make it your own. I'm not going to ever copy exactly what he does, but it was through him and something he did recently that made me think, okay, well, I don't have to do it that way. He's doing it this way, and that's different. And I like this better. It would be more
yeah.
fun and more interesting for me. So I don't know, just like I think being aware and like know what's going on, and through social media or whatever, just following people that you find interesting, they always lead you to something that might be something you can apply to your own business.
Mhm.
Totally. And I think if there's something that I've learned from you ladies, that your relationship is really important. And I think that your relationship to the people you interact with is important. And so when you talked about how you like the way he, interacted with people, I can see that that's a priority for you guys. And so I think that, again, you may not do it the same way that he's doing it, but that becomes your most important thing. And you can feel it, and people can feel it as they do the challenge with you, as they take the online courses, that they go with you to France, or to the retreats that are local. I think that when it's important to them, those are the things, that's the reason why they'll come to you, right?
Yeah, well, and one of the things that Marianne, who I talked about earlier with the big
The heart
Bertha,
vigilante.
yeah, the heart vigilante, big Bertha carrying Marianne, she kept saying, she has said this to me so many times, and she was with us in France, and she said, I always knew that you and Kenzie worked well together, but she never witnessed it until we were in France. And she said, I mean, we finish each other's sentences sometimes, and I'll say something or she'll say something. We're like, oh my God, I was just thinking that. But what I love working with her is, she has such a fresh perspective, and she's a really decisive person. Like if I need a critique or whatever, I can just shoot an email, and right away, she gives me great feedback. And And I always ask her, I'm like, is this too old lady looking? Because, I am older. And like, is this fresh? Because she comes at things from a really fresh, young perspective in the way she draws and uses color. And so it's just fun when we do work side by side because we both kind of like are looking at what the other person's doing.
Oh, I love it. I hope that you can see what a gift it is that you have each other. I can
Oh
tell
God.
Yeah.
it's such a gift, and I don't know if you realize how rare of a gift it is. Like it's something that I would love to have with my daughter, but I also know that it's not always a possibility, like not everybody has this amazing mother-daughter relationship. And so I'm like seriously so happy for you guys. Is there is there any advice that you would say about working with family? Because I think sometimes people are worried about working with family or a best friend because you're so close, you don't want to ruin that relationship. Is there anything that you guys would say about that?
I definitely think you need to, like, you have to have your expectations and know. I mean, my dad, you have to know the personalities really well. So my dad has a very specific personality. My mom has a very specific personality. And I have a very specific personality. So, like, knowing how to handle each other in a way that, like, we can still work functionally, but also still show the love.
Yeah.
That's not really an advice. It's kind of just like what we do. But
No, that's great.
Well, we took this seminar years and years ago, and it was about the personality types. And not that this is mind-blowing stuff, but they broke it down into colors. You're either a yellow, a green, a red, or a blue.
it's kind of like the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And,
And so my husband and I are polar opposites. Like, couldn't be more polar opposites. When we took the Myers-Briggs, we were complete opposites. So poor Kenzie sometimes is in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And we try to just talk about it as best we
I think
can.
I would say, like, being upfront, even though they are family, is definitely important because it's still a business. You're still working as an employee. And I even fall into the category of that being an issue sometimes. Like, there are some things that we both have a give and take kind of relationship because obviously I'm their daughter, so there's some liberties there. And then since I'm their daughter, they also take some liberties. So being flexible with our working relationship has really benefited us. That might not work for everybody, but for us it does.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, over the years, I've had to tell Steve, I'm off duty now, because he'll want to at night, like over dinner or whatever, continue talking about work. And I'm like, I'm off duty now.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk
Don't
about
bring
this.
it home all
I
the
don't
time.
want to talk about this right now. I'm done.
And my husband is a very black and white person too. So sometimes he doesn't totally understand the gray area that we're kind of operating in.
Yeah.
Not that it like causes issues or anything, but it's just it helps because I have to explain to him so that I'm able to verbalize it to myself why it works. I'm like, I watch my kids 2 days a week and they're always flexible if they're sick. So, I always am able to be home with my kids if they're sick and I don't have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I have to have another sick day. Like, they're good about that kind of stuff. But then
She's been flexible because, we've gone a little bit of time without being able to give her a paycheck because of COVID this year. I mean, we're caught up and we're good now, but
also it's just been a year of transition all around.
Yeah, because we actually left my agent this year. So we were with an agent for 15 years and now we're on our own as of this past August. We're trying to ramp up on online classes. I mean, it's just been a lot. So it's been a lot of navigating and a lot of conversations back and forth. about, yeah, I know you're not getting paid on time, but just bear with us because I
Yeah.
know it's going to come together.
I think flexibility is key if you're working in a family environment.
Yeah.
That's what I would say is my biggest piece of advice.
That is good stuff, ladies.
Well, here's the other thing that works for me is my husband works. I've been working from home for the most part for the last few months because I have a studio there. I do come into the office like we're in the office now, but he comes to the office every day. When we are both here, he's downstairs, I'm upstairs. We don't travel into work together. You know, there is some separation, which I think is also
Yeah, you're not right on top of each other at all times.
yeah, we're not like in one 10 by 10 room together 24/7. Then I think I'd go crazy.
Yeah, so when COVID hit, my husband came home and was working from home for a while, and I was like, I wasn't used to having anyone in my space while I was creating. And it's funny
Yeah.
how, and then he went back and I was like, oh, I kind of miss him.
I know it's gonna be weird. My husband has been home pretty much since March. Like he's maybe gone into the office like 2 days. So I'm like, this is gonna be really weird when you actually start going back. But he doesn't have any plans to in the foreseeable future. So
I
Yeah.
think it's changed the whole landscape of how families interact. Like it's
Totally.
changed so much. And we were talking one day and she's like, I think God gave us all a timeout this year to like, you just go in your corner and you just think about things and what's important.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I keep thinking back to that conversation because I think a lot of horrible, hard, challenging things have happened, but I think a lot of good,
Absolutely.
thought-provoking things have happened as
a
well.
lot of reflection.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of been a bit of an equalizer because, celebrities that are super uber famous, they're at home in their pajamas too with no makeup on, and they have to live by the same rules that everyone else does. And
Right.
we're getting glimpses into their lives, their real lives. And I don't know, I just think it's been really interesting, and I'm curious about the impact that it will have on like products that we'll be designing,
Yeah.
a lot of the manufacturers that we work with. And I love hearing trends and hearing what they're like, how all of this is affecting trends and what products are going to come out in the market and what we should be focusing on and all of that.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. So what's a project that you're working on right now, ladies, that you're excited about? Or that you can tell us. I'm sure there's things you can't tell us, but maybe things that you can tell us.
Well, I get excited about almost every project, but one there's a company we work with that does rugs, and I've always loved rugs. So we're doing several different collections for them. What else? What else are we doing? We're doing a lot.
I know. We both are selling T-shirts right now for a.
Oh yeah.
I saw that. They're wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a company called Moi and Toi, and she reached out to me initially through Instagram. The owner's name is Val, and she's just lovely and wonderful. And we had a chat over the phone, and it's like, it felt like I knew her forever. And she just really wants to make this business work, and she wants to put art on t-shirts. And so we started out with 6, I
We each
think,
have
of mine,
6.
and then
Yeah.
Kenzie, and I love her. I want to have all of Kenzie's, of course. And so now we're trying to figure out how to market them because we really want Val to be successful. I mean, it'd be great if we make a little money, but I just, I get invested in her and wanting her to succeed.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out maybe some creative ways to market those. And so we'll see.
That's awesome. Well, I would love to, I'll have to have you email me whatever ones you want me to spotlight, and I'll spotlight them on the episode.
Oh,
So
cool.
Oh, that would be amazing.
in my blog. So in my blog post, I put images
Oh,
So
great.
right now, I mean, I don't know if you have any in your office. So people get to see this on YouTube, plus they'll hear it in podcast land. And then
Uh-huh.
I'll put images in my blog post. So you can send me your favorites and I'll make sure they're in there.
Great.
Awesome. That would be
Great.
great. Thanks.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm pretty excited. I think, let's see, we're doing a collection that's kind of big paintings of house plants for one company that I love working with because she has a really great, uh, like trend forward home decor sense. So we love working with her.
I think sometimes I have a little more, maybe it's because I have two young kids, but I have kind of a juvenile aesthetic sometimes. And I've been doing a lot of like wall decor for kids' rooms lately. That's been pretty fun.
Yeah, that's for one company. They love her. They love everything she does. So
Aw.
they'll send us trends and then we respond to the trends that they send us with
That's so
mostly wall art images. But I think next year, since we've sort of gotten the online class thing a little bit under our belt or a little bit better understanding, I think next year one of my goals would be to start selling originals, but also some print on demand products and prints and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, I want to open some kind of online forum for selling. I mean, I keep doing an illustration a day, which has been so fun, but now I just have this archive of a bunch of things that I'm like, well, I might as well do something
But
with
she's
them.
starting, I mean, people are starting to reach out on Instagram asking her if she sells them as prints, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And kind of a lot of what we're doing now, like the classes together and I've been kind of encouraging her on her social media and everything is like part of what I want to leave to her is the confidence in herself and building her own business because I'm not going to work forever.
Yeah, I know. And I'm already like dreading that day.
Well, I will work forever, actually. Because even when I retire from whatever this is now, I still have big plans for what I'm going to do creatively when I retire.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, you guys, this has been a treat. Okay, so let me ask you just a couple questions that I ask just about everybody. So I started this podcast, I want to say in 2018, and for the first year, the theme of like the question that I asked everybody was basically this idea that we all have 24 hours a day. And we can't do everything that we possibly want to do in those 24 hours. So what are some things that you ladies have given up to follow, your passions in business together, to follow your relationships and make sure that you're a priority for each other, for your families, for your loved ones? Like what are some things that you ladies have chosen to give up?
Oh man. Probably travel. Like not traveling as often. I would love to be able to travel more, but that, with two little kids and trying to work, it's not easy to get away as often as I would like.
Yeah. That's a hard one because I would probably say I would have felt like I gave up more when my kids were growing up because I was growing a company, and at one point in my mid 30s, like I said, we had 12 employees, and I pretty much like had a major meltdown and couldn't realize I couldn't do it all and be a good mom. And I remember one time being at a party with some people, and this woman who was really kind of more about being a stay-at-home mom, she was really kind of grilling me about working and having kids. And I came home and I called my mom. And it was funny, as I was growing up, every time I called my mom for advice, she was not there, but go get my dad, which was maybe even better because my dad's just real cut and dry. And he's like, I'm boohooing, I'm not a good mom. And he's like, are your kids happy? I'm like, yeah, I think they are. Well, are they fed and are you taking care of them? I'm like, yeah, well, then you're fine. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know,
Oh,
I think especially as women, we just put so much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm not good at giving up things that I want to do. Like, I think I would say I haven't really given much up, but I just do less of
yeah,
the things that I want to do. You know,
yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. You're curating. I feel
Yeah.
like as artists and creative, it's easier for us to understand this idea of just curating a life. And sure,
Mhm.
we enjoy all the things, but we may only have the energy this week to put it into three things, even
Right.
though we might dabble in those 12 things throughout the year, but we only maybe get to do three of them every week.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
Like you were
right.
saying, you're not traveling as much as you would like to. And that was me too. We didn't
Yeah.
travel for years. It was so stressful with little
Yeah.
kids. And I think that there's some people that can take their kids with them, but we didn't necessarily have the budget to take all the kids with us everywhere.
Right,
And it
right.
did seem a little daunting to travel with
Yeah, it's
little.
overwhelming with kids. You have to
Yeah.
Yeah.
plan so much,
Yeah.
and you don't know what their mood is gonna be like, and it's almost just easier to
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, and I want to wander the streets with Lori and just
Right.
take pictures. That's
Yeah.
the thing is I'm always telling the kids, I'm like, let's go on a hike. And we don't like hiking. I'm like, you know that I'm not hiking. I'm just going for a walk and I'm taking a picture every 10
Yeah, exactly.
not vigorous, like we're not mountain goats.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
Exactly.
for a stroll in nature.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
My
It's
husband always tells me, he's like, maybe you should try to do less things. And I'm like, but I don't want to give up anything. Like, I
Yeah.
like to I have a book club and I refuse to not read. Like, that's just something that I'm always going to do. And
totally.
I refuse to not set aside like 30 minutes to do a drawing a day. And just like things like that, that I don't have as much time as I would like to put towards them, but I will squeeze in
Yeah,
any little sliver that I can.
I think
love
one
it.
thing that I've been trying to do, maybe even more so this year, because I think losing my mom was a very awakening moment. My mom had Alzheimer's, so I've been losing her slowly for 10 years. But I realized, like, gosh, you really should do the things that you want to do. And I've always been that kind of person that if I had a deadline or something I had to do, I would do that first. And then I would get to do the things that I really wanted to do. And I'm really consciously trying to work on flipping that a little bit, or at least squeezing more time in to do the things I want to do. So like I've been reaching out to artists that I really admire. In fact, you were on my list
Aw.
to do little challenges together, because I find that really inspiring. And my husband last week was not scolding me, but I was saying something about not getting as much done for licensing or whatever, and he's like, well, if you weren't doing all those other little challenge things that you're doing, and I just kind of looked at him, didn't say anything, because I'm like, nope, not giving that up. I
Yeah,
feel like I've worked really long and hard, and it's
totally.
time that I can pick and choose what I want to spend
Yeah.
my time on a little more, hopefully.
And it's also helpful. Like, you have to fuel yourself too.
Yeah, and when you do things like that, like for an example, one of the challenges I just did with Amanda Evanston, who I love, a company that I work with, one of my existing clients saw my Instagram image of what I did for the challenge, and they want to license it for bedding and shower curtains, and so everything kind of interconnects too. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like when you are doing something that comes from your heart, that's fueling your soul, you really get
The best work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So it sounds like what I'm learning from you ladies is sometimes the most important thing to give up is actually guilt.
Yeah.
Feeling guilty about taking
Yeah.
the 10 minutes to do
Yeah.
a sketch today
So true.
That
for
is
my
so
collaboration,
true.
right? And so
You're
I feel like
good.
Hold that
You
down
are
for us.
good.
I'm just learning from you ladies. I'm just, like
Oh,
a
that's
little
great,
friend
though.
here, learning all these things. But yeah, I think that you're right. I think there are things that fill our soul, and we have to be able to recognize and say, I can't give this up right now because I need this to be a whole person, right?
Yeah.
But yet I can allow myself space to create and to take that time and to not let myself feel guilty if I didn't do XYZ today, right?
Yeah,
So
Gosh, that is so right on.
very profound.
You're a therapist.
because it's all from you. It's all from you. I'm just summarizing.
Keep this talk in circles.
I know.
Right?
Just grab that and hold it down.
Pull it down. Okay, so then our kind of like our theme for this last year, I had a cute gal reach out to me that was going to graduate from high school, maybe, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. And she wanted to know some advice for how to proceed with her art career. And should she take out a loan to go to art school? Or should she try to do like local workshops and learn from other teachers online and do these things that are a lot more affordable so that she could be working and go to school? And I thought it was such a great question because really we're at and this is obviously pre-COVID, we're kind of at this point where there really are so many options out there. And I think it's so awesome that the two of you had a lot of the same teachers, even the same projects. So what kind of, I mean, I don't think there's any right or wrong answers. What I hope is that whoever's listening, who needs that their heart's been telling them a certain thing and they needed to get like that affirmation, that you ladies will share something along those lines. Does that make sense? So like what kind of advice would you give to Nash? Or like if he wants to be an inventor and a creative, like what kind of advice would you give him? And would you want him to take out loans to go to some fancy inventor school? Or would you recommend something else? Like what are your thoughts on your path and what you see today?
Well, I think learning can look so different now than it did. I mean, we both went through a 5-year program in graphic design, and what I think part of what was great about that program was the co-op piece of it. So when we went to school, like every other quarter, well, you missed semester. Every other quarter, you were working at a firm as an intern. And I think that real life experience was huge.
Yeah.
So like, I think you can get that in so many ways. Like I have an example right now where we're filming for our online courses, and I can't afford a real expensive videographer, but Kenzie had videos made by friends for my husband for his 60th last year. And our one friend did this great video that his son Jack did all the videography for. And I reached out to him and I'm like, you think Jack would want to do some filming for me? Jack's in the 8th grade. And
he's a sophomore.
Well, no, he was in the 8th grade then.
I'm pretty sure he's in high school, like a sophomore.
I thought he just went into
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
He's young.
He's young. He's young. Point made. He's young. Anyway, he is now our film crew. So whenever I film a class, Jack, who is somewhere between the 8th grade and a sophomore, he's coming in the office and, he's been learning stuff. He's been teaching, he knew how to use Adobe Premiere, so he taught Jeremy in our office how to use that, but then Jeremy's been teaching him some things on Photoshop, and so, he's getting some of that real world experience. But
also learning how to work with a client too, because he is young, and, when kids do their projects, they just have their own agenda and do what they think is right, but we're like, no, you need to do it this way because this is what works for like our audience.
Right.
So teaching him how to take some liberties in order to make your client happy.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I learned more. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I had a great design education, but I will say, like, as far as real life experience, I learned way more when I was in my co-op.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've had a lot of high school students, like parents or friends of ours whose kids are interested in following a creative path, or friends of mine who teach at a university or whatever, they want to come by and do a tour here. And I love doing that. And I think that the thing that I would encourage young people to do is if your parents or friends of yours or whatever have connections in a field that you're interested in, if you can, reach out to them and go visit their, spend a day at their firm, because we had a lot of students do that. They came here and they spent a day here. I actually gave them like sample little projects that they could work on. So just getting a taste of what it's like in that realm where you picture yourself, and making those kind of networking connections, I think are another really great way to explore your path.
Mhm.
Totally.
And the
Yeah.
company that I co-opt for 3 quarters, that's the company I ended up working for after I graduated. So you never know what doors are going to open if you just have these little like side jobs that you are just trying to get a taste of what you want to do. It could turn into something that is more long term.
For
And I
sure.
mean,
And I love too how it seems like you went into that and then you were able to come and work with your parents and their team, and you have a different appreciation, because if you would have graduated and gone straight to working with the family, would you appreciate all
That's,
this goodness that
and
they
that's so funny because my dad would not let me work for them right out of college. He said you need to get like some years under your belt in the real world. Not that this isn't the real world, but it is different. I mean, we're in our little family bubble. So I am very thankful that he did push for that, because I did make some great connections. I worked with some really talented people, and I learned what I wanted and what I did not like in like a more corporate world.
and I think it was a big confidence builder for her,
Yeah, because
because
I can sometimes it's a little intimidating growing up under the shadow of such a talent.
I know, it's true. And yet you were able to forge your own path to a certain extent. And
Yeah.
then you and your mom just, you can tell that you have so much love and respect for each other and your different gifts. And I think that's another reason why it works so well. And you needed to go out and realize that what you had was very valuable. And then when your parents say, yes, Kenzie, this is amazing, you're like, okay, maybe you're telling the truth. You're not
exactly.
mom, dad perspective,
She
right?
got validation outside of us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, ever since she was a little girl, when we would draw together, she'd like, yours is better than mine. And I'm like, Kenzie, I've been doing this my whole life.
Which it's funny because Nash is already starting to say that to me, like if we draw together. And I already am like, how much older am I than you? Like I've had a lot more practice.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so fun. Well, thank you for all that. I think that will really, really touch some hearts and give people the confidence they need to just follow their path. And that's what I truly believe, is that everybody's path is going to look different, even though your paths definitely had some spots where it crossed over. You clearly have had different experiences, and you will continue to have these amazing experiences. Even though you're still working together, you're going to take a different path. And I think that that's so beautiful. So, and just congratulations on what you've done with your licensing, with your online courses, with your retreats. All these things are just so amazing. And I just want to encourage everybody to follow along. In fact, let's talk about this. I made some lists. So we've got Lori, you say Seberg, right?
Siebert, yeah, Siebert.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your main Instagram is Lori Seberg, right? And then
Lori Siebert.studio.
Oh, that's right. .studio. And that's your Instagram.
Yes.
And then I've got Snippets of Whimsy for you, Kenzie. And then where else do you want people to follow you guys? Obviously, Creatively Curious Club, the hashtag is good.
Yes, and I am on Facebook. I do plan to have a Creatively Curious page on Facebook, or a group on Facebook, but I haven't quite completely launched that. That's going to be part of this launch strategy. So I have it set up. I just haven't done anything with it quite yet, but I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, if they would like to get on our newsletter, if you go to my bio, and click on the link, then you can find where you can sign up for my newsletter, because we send out a weekly, every Friday, we send out what we call the, what is it, 4 fabulous findings for creatively curious. So we basically find things that we think are really interesting, whether it be other artists. And I think we featured you, didn't we? I think we did.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think,
you did. You did.
yeah, yeah. I think one of the very first
I
ones.
think that may be one of the reasons why I started following you, because I was like, oh, who is this wonderful person?
So we feature people we love and books we like and Netflix series we like and just anything that's inspiring. And then once in a while we send one out called Show and Tell, which tells you what's going on in our studio. And I have some other ideas for other things that I want to do in talking to people on our email list. So we'd love to have people sign up for that.
Yeah, for sure. I will put a direct link to your email. Okay, I'll put that on there. And then also I wanted to ask you, you can just give me a quick answer. You don't have to go in because I've kept you for so long. I can ask you guys a million questions. But I noticed that you're using not necessarily a what is it?
Linktree.
But it's something similar. Instead of going to like a website, you're almost going to landing pages, and you're kind of doing that. And I think what I loved about seeing that you were doing that was that I think a lot of times artists think I need to have all my ducks in a row before I can launch.
Right.
But I think that you're taking a path to say, let me give you exactly what you want right here on Instagram while you're here. And I think that that's so valuable. But did you want to say
we don't have a website.
You do have one today.
We do not. Well, we have Milkshake, which is sort of our website fill-in. We've been trying to get to the time to do our website forever, but we really, honestly, for the last 15 years, we haven't really needed one because we've been working with an agent, and we really didn't have to reach out to an audience outside of that. But now that we are exploring selling online courses and eventually products, we need to figure that out. So until we get a real formal website, I like this option. And I had looked at Linktree first, but then a friend of mine, Margot Tantow, who I really respect and admire, I noticed that she was using Milkshake. So I researched that, and what I liked about it is you can kind of customize the look of it. So it has a kind of a branded feel to it. When they click on the link in your bio and go to all of your links, I liked that feature. I also liked that it's free.
I didn't realize that, but I did notice that it looked like you. I thought,
that was one part that I really, really liked. When I saw that Margot was using it, I liked how it looked. And so I don't know, I just went and explored it, and it's really, really easy to use too. Super easy to use.
Aren't you using one of my patterns?
Yeah. Yeah.
She was
so, like, I need something for the background. So I went to her feed and grabbed her pattern.
She's like, I know she won't care.
No, it's great. It's like teamwork right there. Oh, I love it. That's so cool. Okay, so anything else that I've missed? You're welcome to send me links. Like if you like, and when you have your the bird junk pieces launch, like feel free to send me links and I'll put it out there, and I can always update this episode with what when your next online course launches. If you get the France thing this next year, I can totally add all these things to that page so that when people listen, they can go and see them.
Well, I would love to talk to you any old time because it's just been fun.
Yeah, I know.
This has been
nice.
I don't know where your boys are, but tell maybe Grandpa's watching them. Is Papa watching the boys?
No, they were at daycare, and I just texted my husband like, I need you to pick them up today.
We're just chatting. Well, yeah. Tell everybody thanks for letting us do this, because I know it's kind of it's a family affair, and it was so great to get to know you ladies.
Yeah, this has been great.
All the things you're doing, and thank
so
you.
Do you have to edit all this down, or do you put it out like full length, or?
So I will, I'll take the little snippets that we talked about in the beginning before I opened it up, and I will share a little bit of them at the end as a bonus. But yeah, I don't do major editing. I've just decided that for me, being authentic means just having a good conversation and putting it
Yeah.
out into the world. So I think that, yeah, because I mean, when it comes down to it, like you ladies, I do want to do several things, but I don't want to just do the podcast.
Right.
And so
Right. Yeah.
I've learned that I've had to give up on perfection with podcasting and in editing.
That's another good thing you give up. Perfection. That's
Right?
another really good thing.
Yeah.
We
'Cause
have to.
you have this vision in your head sometimes, and if you don't get perfection right out of the gate, you give up and you don't proceed. But just like this first class we launched, it was not perfect. It was not what I envisioned, but I'm like, all right, let's learn from that, and the next time it'll be better, and
Yeah.
the next time after that it'll be better. So guilt and perfection, those
Yeah.
are things
I
to
love
get-
that. Yeah. So those of you that are listening today, you can join Lori and Kenzie and I because we're going to give up guilt and perfection.
Yes. Yes.
We've decided that's going to make us happy.
Yes.
Definitely.
That's so good. Oh, well, ladies, thanks so much. You guys are so great. And I'm excited to share this with everyone and just want to send a lot of love to you and to your family.
Thank
You
you
are
for
just-
having us.
You're
This
just
has
the
been a treat.
sweetest. And
Yeah.
if you want to do a challenge together, just let me know.
Yeah, that would be so fun. That would be so fun.
So
Oh.
I've done 2 of them now, and we just brainstorm, what are we both interested in doing? And then we set a time frame and whatever, and then we create something and then post about it.
Oh, I love it. Okay, yeah, you and I are going to have to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that'd
Let's
be good.
do.
Well, awesome. Well, from Lori and Kenzie and I, we just want to send lots of love to each of you today from the Candy Colored Studio. And also, what do you guys call your studio?
It's Olika Studio, but I'm actually starting to go with Lori Siebert and Company. So
Oh, good. So, yeah, we just want to send lots of love to all of you listening today and have a wonderful day.
Bye. Thank you.